able to walk through all the things that come with it with other people.
Yeah.
I think that it really, having a community like that, I don't want to say would have sped up my growth in it, because I feel like I took the journey that I was meant to take, but I definitely think that having a community and having someone else that would have understood, even if it had been one person, would have drastically changed my perspective and probably bettered the relationship with not just my parents, but peers and what else alike.
I think, as you speak, it occurs to me that you never had anyone else as almost like a mirror who had been through what you were dealing with. So what do you think the impact of that was, that you were kind of all alone in feeling that you were unique in having an experience like this with both parents who were in prison, and no one matched your story. So what do you think the impact of that might have been, or maybe still is?
Yeah, what I think that I hope as an adult changes about this conversation is that the kid who has children, or that is a child of incarcerated parents, realizes that there are probably others around because of how abundant the population is, but nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it really comes down to, like, there were probably kids in my school that, every person's interaction and story with incarceration looks slightly different. But there were probably kids that had gone through something of the sorts that I could have talked to, but because no one talked about it, including myself, it put me in a place where I felt extremely isolated. I struggled to maintain healthy relationships. I definitely was the girl that would go to school with a smile on her face and have a breakdown probably at least monthly about what was going on behind the scenes. And I never really felt with my biological parents, I wasn't around my dad much, obviously, but even when I would visit my mom, like not when she was in prison, but just, on the outside in quote unquote normal life, there still seemed to be some kind of disconnect on my side, just because I feel like I wouldn't talk about it and I was the only one going through it. So I feel like that led to a lot of isolation and a lot of mental repercussions that came out later, but at the time I repressed.
Yeah, I would think so. Now, where are you right now in your life, in terms of your goals, or what you see yourself doing maybe a year from now, 2 years from now? Tell us where you are.
Yeah. So I after I took on the platform with Miss Sierra Nevada, I definitely felt called to the work. I felt like, as a child of incarcerated parents, it's part of my social responsibility to respond to this issue and to make change within this issue. And so kind of rerouted my original plan and applied to USC. So I'm currently at USC doing my Master's in Nonprofit Leadership and Management alongside my Master's of Science in Criminal Justice, just to further my knowledge in those areas. And I'm hoping when I graduate with my master's to work somewhere in the criminal justice realm, whether it be with children of incarcerated parents. I would love to help assist in a program that normalizes visitation in jails and prisons to help lessen the trauma that children of incarcerated parents go through, even just in visiting their parents. Or I would love to work in, I've thought about law school in the future, just in the public defender side of life. I just have a big passion for reunification and having families re-enter society and watch them be successful. And the amount of people that are wrongfully convicted in our criminal justice system, along with a lot of other things in our criminal justice system, can seem absurd and needs a lot of healing and needs a lot of love and grace. And so I would love to go into that system in either capacity, to just really with a heart of service and hope for change.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. Do you think, Shaylee, if you had not had the childhood you did have, that you would have this interest in the criminal justice system at all?
I I really don't know. I really think that the way I was personally impacted has definitely been my driver.
Mm.
Just because I don't know if I would have been as aware. I mean, even in small things, like I competed for Miss California in June of 2019, and my biological mom was supposed to come to Miss California. And I found out 20 minutes before I went on stage for the finals that she had been put back in jail.
Oh.
And the reason she was put back in jail was because her parole officer, she had gotten a verbal okay, but not a written okay, that she could go out of state. And so then she was taken back and put into jail. And it's things like those that I think, because of my personal experience and my personal interaction with them, I see the injustice.
Yeah.
And I know that I experience it on this scale, but there are people that are experiencing on a much larger scale as well. Um, and so all to say, I think my personal experience, and as it continues on in my life, is something that definitely drives me. But I would hope that people without the personal experience, whether they know someone that has gone through something or are just educated on it in general, would have that passion to change it and seeing the areas that just need reform.
But I think because you bring so much to it, because you've lived it, I think it's so different. You've experienced
Mm.
going to a prison to visit your parents, and it's just that is an experience that doesn't match anything else.
Yeah.
I visit a number of people in prison, particularly a women's prison, and I see what happens when these very little toddlers come running through that door
Mm-hmm.
into their mom's arms. And, it always tugs at my heart. It always makes me very, very sad. So,
Mm.
and especially when we all have to leave, when visiting hours are over. So I'm sure those are things that you remember, and you bring those experiences to whatever you plan to do with your life and your education. Now we only have a very few minutes left. You had mentioned to me that you visited Angola prison.
Mm.
Did you want to say something about that visit and the impact it had on you?
Yeah, before I went to Angola, I was working at a church that partners with an organization that is called Lifeline Global, and they do a returning heart celebration every year where the kids get a full 8-hour visitation, full contact with their dads,
Mm.
um, at it's kind of like a carnival. Um, and I had been asked to go to Angola, and I gave a hard no because at that point I hadn't really accepted where I was at, or what had happened to me, but finally got convinced to go. So I went kicking and screaming, kind of, what am I going to learn from this? Um, and just watched these men in prison, um, and learned from them and saw their wisdom and saw their love and saw their joy. And I just was so incredibly proud of everything that they had accomplished. And I sat back and was like, I don't view my dad the way I view these men.
Mm.
Um, and I didn't know these men. They weren't personally, I had never met them before, but in meeting them, it really shifted my perspective on my dad. And that's kind of where him and I were able to re-begin, I guess, restart our relationship, because I think it's easy to, and I fully believe that I fell into the part of the population. Granted, I had my own personal things that I was jaded towards, but where I just ignored that prison existed because everybody in prison is a threat, quote unquote, a threat to public safety, which once you go into prison, you realize is, one, completely untrue, and two, that a lot of people inside are better than the people on the outside. In the way that they view things, and just in their spirits. It's incredible. It's incredible. I try to encourage all of my friends. I'm like, just go to prison once.
Yeah,
You'll
that's
love it.
right. All you need is one visit. That's true. And you
Yeah,
get
you
your
just need to be
perspective
that one
change.
person. Exactly. And so, yeah, I think that Angola really provided that for me, and really allowed me take what I had gone through and see that, there's power in my story, and I can share it, and I can be in places like this, because places like this are safe and full of really incredible people. But Angola was definitely a game changer for me.
That's wonderful. Well, certainly wish you the very, very best on your journey, and some of the things that you hope to be able to do sound wonderful. And I thank you so much for spending time with us and for telling us your very personal story in a very open and honest way. So I want to tell our listeners to join us next time, where our guests will be the students from P.O.P.S. and hopefully some other nonprofit organizations which also support young people with an incarcerated parent. So thank you so much for listening. As always, if you have any thoughts or comments, please send them to me at pursuing.justice5@gmail.com. Please stay safe and stay well, and we will see you next time on Pursuing Justice.